Amar, thank you so much. Why don't you start off by telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for having me on today's episode. Peterborough Care is a family-run company, a group of five care homes, all local to the Peterborough area. As you have previously said, it was a company founded by my mother, Shami, a registered nurse by profession, who in 1983 decided to leave the NHS to try and pursue a solo career in looking after older people, which is where her passion was. I still regard her as one of the pioneers of our sector. She's still very actively involved today, albeit we try and shield her away from the bureaucracies that surround our sector. But yeah, she's still very much involved, and we still learn a lot from her ethos, her philosophies, and it's carried the company to where it is today.
That's fabulous, great. Well, congratulations to your mother. So let's get straight in. So a very open-ended question, but where do you start when you're thinking about recruiting and retaining care teams?
So I think recruitment and retention for me is number one, simply because without the people that deliver the care, we can't set out to do what we want to do. And you tag consistency into that and continuity, that allows you to deliver some of those elements that you set out to achieve. Now with consistency, I mean keeping your teams. And we hear a lot. We're hearing a lot in the press at the moment about people leaving the sector because there are, better paid jobs. But actually, I'm seeing people who are absolutely loving what they do. And let's remember, a lot of people choose this vocation because, they have a passion for wanting to do it. Them coming to work, them getting up every day. Yeah, absolutely. It is a tough job, but we've been able to not only recruit, but retain staff nearly a 97% rates. Our agency usage in the company, I think we measured last year at about 0.2%. Yes, we're very fortunate that we have five homes all within a
So what
short
was the
distance.
number? 0.2% for.
Agency use.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay.
And I think, there's no kind of, there's no sort of rocket science or formulas to any of this. I think
Mm,
we've always had an approach of being present. And I think that presence goes a long way to giving people reassurances and knowing that you're there to support them.
mm.
We're actively working in our homes. We do have a head office, but we're actively in our homes on a daily basis. We're able to see what's being delivered. We're also able to spot talent very quickly as well. Talent for me, Adam, is not someone who's shown me a folder full of certificates and qualifications. It's about people who, genuinely want to get up and do this job and love this job and love older people. You tag that in with hard work, and that's your talent in front of you. And there are a lot of those people in our sector.
And that's great. And tell me about the hiring of your managers, because I imagine I know that that's going to be such a significant and important hire for you. How you go about that, who you look for, what traits you're looking for, and the kind of values and approach that they have, and how you, as the owners, kind of the relationship you have with them.
So for me, I'll just give you a brief history about each of our managers.
Yeah,
So I think three of them started with us as domestic assistants. One of those is now managing an outstanding rated care home, and her journey started back in 2002. For us, it's again about people who are showing a passion to want to work with older people. I think that's
yeah.
the number one in this sector. Everything else is teachable and everything else is trainable, but you can't teach someone
Mm,
to have passion, and you can't teach someone to love.
yeah.
So with us, in regards to the question you asked, someone who is teachable is really important, because whilst I, I don't, know everything, I've got a lot of experience in the sector, and I've learned what kind of does work and what doesn't work. So being teachable, open to ideas, sharing ideas, because we don't want someone who's just going to tick boxes because we tell them to tick boxes.
Mm,
We want people that are going
mm.
to challenge us. Actually, a lot of the processes we've developed over the years is because we've been challenged in the way we've worked by our staff and our managers,
Right, right.
and made those implementations. And I think that goes back to the conversation we had a moment ago about having those sort of strong relationships. with your teams. We like our managers to be hands-on as well. So yeah, there is an element of administration, but I think if I saw my managers sat in an office 9 to 5 all day, every day, I'd be
Mm,
concerned. We try and take a lot of that bureaucracy away from the home so that they can really focus on the care delivery.
yeah.
And actually, and I may be wrong in saying this, but I think as a manager, that is your number one priority to make sure, the delivery of the care is as best as it can be.
Yeah, yeah. And so that, the idea that your domestic assistant, rose up to be the manager. So she's, I presume it's a she, is
It's
correct?
the she, Janet. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So she's kind of risen, up with the values and how so she kind of knows how you work and your approach. What about the other managers? Have you ever, how often have you hired, and refresh or from what you were telling me, your managers have said the least time is 10 years. So you've not hired a manager for 10 years. But tell me a little bit more about the other managers. This idea, the passion to work with the elderly people is number one, and the rest of it is largely teachable. So that's a trait. Is that correct? You feel that all your managers have?
absolutely. And because we see that as a priority, I think you then have to take a step back and work out as an owner, where you need to then sit in that puzzle to allow the operation to continue. Because we can all say, we want our managers to be hands-on, but if you're not taking an element of that workload and supporting it, it may not happen. So yeah, for me, that sort of hands-on approach is number one, because then that's where the passion comes into it. And when I look at each of our guys, I say guys, each of our managers, they've all had that same value in terms of wanting to achieve, wanting to deliver the best, wanting to be available for their teams, wanting to be available for families, wanting to know what's going on. Again, there are elements of reporting mechanisms that are in place, but unless that is robust, you're sort of trusting what's then filtering back to you. So I think being inquisitive, on a daily basis and just wanting to know what's happening is a fundamental part of the role. It's one of the traits that our managers do have.
Yeah, yeah, I see. And in terms of your kind of how much you talked about, obviously you've been in the sector for 26 years, you've got a lot of knowledge and experience. How often do your managers come to you to say, "What do I do? How do I fix this?" Or how much do you delegate completely to them? What's your role in helping them is my first question. And another one I have is, they've been with you for a long time. That's great. But every manager can choose another job. Maybe, there's always a better job, is there not? In everyone's horizon. So how do you, keep them essentially?
So in terms of the help first, Adam, and we give our managers complete autonomy, but every day they're contacting me more for reassurance and making sure they do the right thing. And what I've learned is that will never stop.
Mm,
That will always be there. And you've got to be prepared as a leader, as an owner, to sometimes hear the same thing time and time again. But just a simple no, that's correct. What you're doing is enough. Things should never be treated as like a hassle or an annoyance or an irritance. Because what we've got to remember is we're looking after people at the end of the day. And it's not about listening to a question that's repetitive, because that question can be about a care related matter. That could have a bigger impact, further down the line. So yeah, I mean, they will reach out every day, but they know they can reach out every day, but they don't use it to their advantage.
yeah,
I think and coming to your second question, that peace of mind just to know that they can pick up the phone at any time is what allows us to keep
right.
our managers.
Yeah, yeah,
Again, it's not rocket science. I mean, you're right. There are probably better paid jobs in other homes and probably better career progression. But, never once have I felt that our managers are looking elsewhere.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so money's not everything, in the world of social care.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. So, and now, if you can share to me your care workers, your care teams, those who are on the ground. That in itself is, different challenges to resolve. Tell me what you've learned about how best to, again, recruit and retain these, people who are basically keeping all care homes going.
Yeah, yeah. So again, for me, my number one criteria when recruiting, and I'm still involved in recruiting, when it
Mm.
occurs, right from domestic staff
Yeah.
to care assistants to nurses, because I enjoy it. I also like to eyeball candidates and genuinely feel their sense of passion and love. And they're my two criteria is that you
So is
want to
this,
do.
are you what, all for all care workers or just every so often?
No, every so often,
Yeah, yeah.
every
Yeah, I
so
was going to
often.
say, otherwise that's a significant amount for 5 homes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was something that I was heavily involved in at one
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
but I had to learn to step away.
Yeah.
But no, I think, again, that love for wanting to look after older people for me is
Mm.
number one
Mm.
priority. Everything after that, Adam, is teachable. You'll hear words like the care certificate, mandatory training, supervisions, competencies. These are the same across every care home, and they're all teachable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing I've learned is that everyone is teachable. I mean, our workforce is very diverse. We recruit. We've got sponsor licenses with the Home Office, so it allows us to recruit from overseas. And obviously, that kind of challenge of recruitment, is evolving into an even bigger thing. When I first started in the sector, it was very easy. You put an advert in the paper and have 10, 15 people kind of applying. For the position. You're very lucky if you two apply these days. But yeah, again, I think, the same philosophy for us, Adam, that we put onto our managers, we put onto all our teams, being present, being knowing that staff can reach out for queries, just spending time to talk with your staff, even asking about kind of their loved ones and how their lives are going, and also remembering that so the next time you see them, you can kind of pick up that conversation. And I know when you start, you get to multiple homes, it's not always going to be as simple as that. But one thing I've done over the years is sort of teach my managers the sort of traits I started out with. Like, I was genuinely interested in my staff, every one of them, and about their families as well. And I've been able to sort of put that philosophy onto my managers so that they are having those levels of conversations, in their homes. It's not all just about care on a daily basis, because people do have a life outside work and there are problems. And whilst you don't want those problems discussed sort of immediately in front of residents, our staff may still need our help from time to time, on personal matters, and you have to be there for them. And
Yeah.
sometimes just by listening goes a
Mm.
long way. It really
Mm.
does. I think also, again, we've got care staff who have been with us 20, 21, 22, 23
Mm.
years. I
Mm.
mean, some of these individuals came with absolutely no experience,
Mm.
but again had that passion to want to look after older people.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And tell me a little bit more about the onboarding of a new care worker and what's the process you have? Because I guess that's quite important, the first impressions that a new member of the team get. Tell me a little bit more about how you do that, what you do, how you conduct it, what the timeline is.
So there's obviously the tick box process,
Yeah, yeah.
and then there's the process of just getting that sort of initial impact about this is what care's about.
Mm,
Um, and I always like to just put people into the deep end, very quickly, especially if we're looking, if we've recruited someone who's not experienced to the sector, because you want them to very quickly understand
mm,
the reality. The onboarding, we usually have a week of a shadowing induction, and that's not necessarily done with a more senior member of staff, but we tend to do it with a member of staff who's been with us a long time, because whilst being inducted in terms of the day-to-day work, we want our ethos and our philosophies also to be discussed at that time. We don't want that element of work to be posters that are up in the staff room, that someone may or may not see, or in a staff handbook that someone may or may not read. We want it communicated as part of the delivering of care work.
mm,
So yeah, that shadow induction is about a week's process. Obviously, there's the 13-week kind of probation period as well. But in that time, as well as the home manager, our HR manager, and at least one of the directors, sort of will reach out to the new employee, just to make sure that things are going well, because there's a big cost, isn't there? when you're going through a recruitment process, and you don't want to be in a situation where you've recruited and after 6 or 7 weeks you're saying, yeah, this isn't worked out, who's next? Put your heart and soul in the first couple of weeks into getting someone inducted the right way. And yeah, there's always going to be learning along the way. There's always
Yeah.
going to be learning along the way.
Yeah.
But that first couple of weeks for me is always that,
Mm.
I think, that critical period.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. And in terms of, how you build in rewards, positive reinforcements or negative, I mean, I don't know how you run it, but tell me a little bit more about how this kind of feeling and of sense of, doing a good job, how you incorporate that into how your care homes run.
Yeah, so we have yeah, we have an employee benefit system, we have an employee welfare system, and
Yeah.
that's nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. It's
Yeah.
there. But actually what I've learned over the years is the engagement with staff is really what matters.
Mm.
People. So we do that through targeted questionnaires,
Mm.
through staff meetings where, again, one of the senior team will be present to be able to answer questions and put things to bed very quickly without having to prolong. There's a pathway, and I think the success stories of our managers, we've turned those into success stories that people can
Mm.
actually see,
Mm.
that there is a
Mm.
there is a clear sort of progression. And even now, several of the local managers at other care homes have worked in our organization at one point, and they've sort of been on that journey. We just didn't have the job at the end to be able to kind of, offer them. And yeah, I mean, again, I keep saying it's, none of this is rocket science. We've been there and done that with we'll pay a little bit more if you cover a night shift
Mm.
or work a bank holiday and whatever else. But actually,
Mm.
we don't really see, changes to anything with any of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, again, for me, it's not always about the money.
That's great. Well, there's been so much here, Emma. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, is there anything in particular that we've not covered that you want to make sure you convey?
No, I think we're moving into a very uncertain period when it
Mm.
comes to recruitment. A
Yeah.
lot of the long-standing staff are, when we're seeing it as well, beginning to retire off. I think overseas recruitment will play a big part in our sector, and we should embrace it, and all the culture and diversity that brings as well, to our sector. Yeah, I mean, that for me, I think is a big one. I mean, I could go on about kind of underfunding and whatever else, but actually,
Mm.
they're things that are out of my hands.
Mm.
There's no point, sort of debating about them. But I think, if there's a kind of snapshot recap, work closely with your staff,
Mm.
know them as individuals, be contactable, and show that same passion that they're doing, understand the reality that they face on a day-to-day basis. I think they are things that will set you up,
Mm.
well, in terms of recruiting and then retaining good people.
Mm.
And there are good people there. There are good
Mm.
people out there. I think let's
Mm.
not forget that it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, no, sure. Well, that's a great note to end on. Emma, thank you so much for being our guest on the Care CEO Success Stories podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam.